The company Cascade designs oversees a variety of brands: MSR, Platypus, Seal Line, Pactal, and Therm-a-Rest. We're interested in their sleeping gear line, which is Therm-a-Rest. Under the Therm-a-Rest brand, you can find sleeping bags, quilts, pillows, blankets, chairs, hammocks, and of course sleeping pads. Now they have sleeping pads for base camping, sleeping pads for trek and travel, and sleeping pads for people like us who are backpackers or wilderness travelers. And within the sleeping pad line, they have four main brands: ProLite, Ridgerest, Z-Lite, and NeoAir. The topic of today's review is a pad in the NeoAir line. We're going to talk about three pads, but in particular the new UberLite, which is their lightest pad. They also have the X-Lite and X-Therm, and the product review, which is linked in the description below, discusses all three of these pads in detail so that you can understand where the UberLite fits into all this. Now, it's January. It's winter here in southeast Wyoming, and it's cold. The UberLite is marketed as a summer or maybe a two-season pad. I don't buy it. I think you can use this pad in all four seasons. So I'll show you what my ultralight winter kit looks like and how I'm integrating the UberLite into that kit. Okay, this is my winter pack for a 3-day, 2-night trip. It weighs about 14 pounds, and I'll show you what I'm carrying. Obviously, you can see that strapped to the top is a Z-Rest. Now, this is about a 3/4 length Z-Rest. It provides the foundation of my winter sleep system. I'll discuss the other components in just a second. But I'll show you what I'm carrying here in my backpack. I have an earth sack containing a few days of food, a down pullover parka for warmth in camp and at rest stops. I do carry a pair of rain pants. Even though temperatures that I travel in are going to be below freezing, I take rain pants because it keeps me dry when I'm fiddling with the fire or cooking or making a snow shelter or something like that. But I don't often carry a full-on waterproof breathable rain jacket in the winter. With such cold temperatures, a really thin wind shell is plenty for shedding dry snow and wind. Pair of sleep socks so I can change out of my damp socks at nighttime. I have my cook kit, which is a titanium pot and a wood stove. Here's all my little essentials. Has my eating utensil, first aid kit, some toiletries, flashlight, things like that. Sometimes I'll take a pretty robust fire kit containing a saw or a knife for batoning wood or even a hatchet, so that if I know that I'm having to build a fire and hang out in camp for a long time, these tools go a long way at making that process more fun and more pleasant. Of course, we have a ground cloth. That's just a polycro ground cloth. My tarp, which is a 9x9 Dyneema composite fabrics tarp. It includes guy lines, but does not include stakes. I don't really use stakes in the winter. I use dead men, or I tie the guy lines to trees and things like that. This is a forest camping kit, not really a kit for surviving blizzards above the tree line. And then finally, at the very bottom is my sleeping gear. So I keep it compressed in a compression sack because my pack is kind of small and it helps it fit better down there. Okay, so inside the sleeping kit are a 10-degree sleeping bag. I use the REI Magma, which I think is probably the best value bag on the market. High quality, well constructed, very puffy. I do have a sleeping pad inflation bag. I also use this as a storage spot for my down parka and other clothes if I need to keep them dry if I get into a case where there's heavy precipitation. Here's a small stuffed sack with a fleece lined side that I can use for a pillow by stuffing extra clothes in it. And the subject of our review today, which is the NeoAir UberLite. And there you can get a sense of the pack size of the UberLite. It's very small, but it's still a full length, standard size, 2.5 inch thick sleeping pad. All right, let's blow it up. Andrew said in his review that it took him about 15 to 17 breaths to blow up the pad. That would make me lightheaded. It would take me about probably 20 to 25 breaths to not get lightheaded, but what I really like to use is an inflation bag, and it serves as a dual use item. Yeah, this is getting too crowded. Oh, I also forgot. There's the rest of my winter kit, which includes a pair of ski shoes and ski poles. So critical for deep snow travel. Okay, where were we? Oh yeah, the UberLite. Okay, so there you have it. There's the Therm-a-Rest. Let's do the full name. Cascade Designs, Therm-a-Rest. Cascade Designs, Therm-a-Rest NeoAir UberLite. We're just going to call it the UberLite. The Therm-a-Rest NeoAir UberLite is the lightest, full-sized, that is, 20 inches wide by 72 inches long, air inflatable sleeping pad on the market. The manufacturer claims that the stated weight is 8.8 ounces. It weighs 8.3 on my scale, which is great. So a full half ounce lighter than what the manufacturer says. Now, there are pads that are lighter, but they're either shorter, thinner, or of a different configuration, like the Climate, like some of the Climate X pads, which have gigantic holes in the middle of them and don't really have an R value that compares to something that has complete coverage. So there are two ways the UberLite saves weight over similar pads. The first is that it uses lighter fabrics. The UberLite has a 15 denier ripstop nylon on its top surface and a 15 denier nylon on its bottom surface. Now, if you compare this to the X-Lite is made with a 30 denier ripstop high tenacity nylon on both its upper and lower surfaces. And then the even warmer X-Therm pad has the 30 denier high tenacity ripstop nylon on its upper surface and a 70D nylon on its lower surface. Now, the most significant impact of that lighter fabric is a loss in durability, a loss in its ability to resist tearing and punctures. Now, over the short term, we've had no issues with this pad at all. It can handle spruce needles trying to poke through it. I have been unsuccessful taking the needles of a blue spruce in my backyard and trying to make holes in the pad. Where I'd be more concerned is if the pad was abrading against something sharp, like pieces of rock and grit and things like that, while a body was laying on it and putting lots of abrasive pressure on it. But we'll have to wait and see until the through hiking season next year is over and we can get a lot more data about how well the UberLite's fabric resists abrasion and punctures. The second way the UberLite saves weight is that it eliminates a layer of interior fabric that's present in the X-Lite and the X-Therm that is used to reflect heat off of surfaces inside the pad. And that's why the X-Lite has an R value of 3.2 and the X-Therm has an R value of 5.7. Now the UberLite has an R value of 2.0 primarily because that fabric is missing inside the pad. That does two things. First, it saves weight. Second, it makes the pad quite a bit quieter. Let me show you what I mean. So here's an X-Therm, which has a noise level that's very similar to the X-Lite. Both of them have these reflective fabrics inside the pads to help improve the R value. So hear that crinkling? That's that fabric inside, the reflective fabric. Okay, now let's take a look at the UberLite and compare it. Okay, the only crinkling you hear is the actual fabric that the pad is made from, this outer layer of fabric. There's no interior fabric layers except for some interior baffling, and it's just one layer of fabric. It doesn't have that extra layer of reflective fabric that causes all the crinkling. So, UberLite, X-Therm. So the X-Therm is noisier and noticeably so. So I think your tent partners or even your camp mates who are sleeping close to you would appreciate the fact that you're rolling around on a pad that is a little bit quieter than the X-Lite or the X-Therm. Now, elimination of that crinkly reflective fabric reduces the R value of this pad to about 2.0. Now, what does that really mean in practical terms? Well, if you consider the X-Therm at 5.7 a 4-season pad, something you can sleep directly on snow and in very cold temperatures, and the X-Lite as a 3-season pad where you would expect temperatures to dip well into the 20s on a regular basis, and the UberLite might be considered a 1 or 2-season pad at an R value of 2.0. Now, my own experience tells me that sleeping pads that have an R value in the 1.5 to 2.5 range are just fine into the 30s, and I've been warm enough on nights into the 20s with these pads when sleeping on bare, dry ground. Now, as the ground becomes wet or covered in snow, there's a limitation there, and so an R value of 2.0 may cause you some discomfort if you're trying to sleep on this pad at around or below freezing. But for dry ground, it should be totally fine. And that's assuming you also have the skills and knowledge required to get the most out of your gear on cold nights. It's definitely some skill involved. It has to do with your metabolism, the clothing you're wearing at night, going to bed with dry clothing, sleeping out of the wind. There's so much that goes into the warmth of your sleep system that you can't always blame a cold night's sleep on a low R value sleeping pad alone. Now for winter conditions, I am going to set my UberLite on top of a foam pad. I carry the Z-Lite and I have cut it down so it's about a 2/3 length pad. So I will lay my UberLite on top of that, and then my empty backpack will be used for the feet. It has a foam layer between the internal frame of the pack and the back panel, and so that foam can provide insulation for my feet as well. And I would expect that the UberLite at an R value of 2 and this Z-Rest pad would be just fine down into some very cold temperatures and sleeping directly on snow. So we have to ask the question, who's going to be most interested in purchasing the Therm-a-Rest NeoAir UberLite? I think there's 3 categories of people that are worth considering here. The first category of people includes X-Lite and X-Therm users who want a quieter night's sleep and still want a pad for 2 to 3 season use. The second category includes users of other brands of air pads, but they're looking to save weight. And the third category of users are those who are using closed cell foam pads, but are looking to upgrade to something like this in order to reduce bulk, save weight, and vastly increase the level of comfort of your sleep. I think the main limitations of this pad are going to be its long-term durability and its ability to resist abrasion, especially if there are sharp objects underneath the pad while you're sleeping on it and rolling around and rubbing against those objects. So little pieces of grit or stones, really dry twigs that have sharp edges on them, seed husks in desert plants, things like that. The second limitation this pad has, of course, is its warmth. At an R value of 2.0, it may not be the best option for you if you tend to sleep cold. In addition, it's not going to be viable if you sleep directly on snow-covered ground. You're going to need to put a layer of closed cell foam underneath this pad in order to get the most out of it in these 3-season or extended 3-season conditions. I think this pad is going to be very attractive for experienced backpackers who know how to get the most out of minimal equipment to sleep warm in inclement conditions. Okay, that's it. My closing comments on the pad, well, it's 8.5 ounces. It's full length and it's 2.5 inches thick. It's kind of a remarkable engineering feat to achieve a pad of this size and this level of comfort at this weight. And I'm really looking forward to testing this over the long term, and it is definitely going into my 3-season backpacking kit. And I'm going to use it this winter too. I showed you how to do that. Okay, that's it. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you'd like to read the full review written by Andrew Marshall over at backpackinglight.com, I'll put the link below in the video description. Other than that, 8.5 ounces for a lot of comfort. The Cascade Designs Therm-a-Rest NeoAir UberLite. Thanks for watching.